Carry yourself like you belong here. Most people underestimate how much their body shapes their fate. They believe life is decided by intelligence, luck, or opportunity alone. They think confidence comes after success. They assume respect must be earned before it can be shown. But the truth is more uncomfortable and more empowering. Your posture is a decision, and that decision quietly trains your brain, shapes how others treat you, and influences the trajectory of your life. Before you speak, before you explain, before you prove anything, your body has already told a story. The body is not neutral. Human beings are not floating minds. We are embodied creatures. Every emotion you feel, fear, confidence, anxiety, hope, has a physical expression. And every physical expression feeds back into your emotional state. When you hunch forward, avoid eye contact, and shrink your presence, your nervous system interprets that as danger. It prepares you for defeat before the fight even begins. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your voice weakens. Your thoughts narrow. You don't just look uncertain, you become uncertain. This is not philosophy. This is biology. The body evolved to read signals first and explanations later. Your nervous system doesn't wait for logical arguments. It reacts instantly to posture, tension, and movement. And if your body tells your brain, "We are weak, we are threatened, we are small," your brain obeys. Confidence is not a personality trait. One of the most damaging myths is that confidence is something you either have or don't have. That belief alone has ruined countless lives. People say, "I'm just not confident. That's not my personality. I'll stand tall once I feel better about myself." But confidence is not a mood. It's a practice. Confidence is not arrogance. It's not pretending to be superior. It's not dominance for its own sake. Confidence is simply this: I am willing to face what's in front of me without collapsing. And that willingness begins in the body. You don't wait until you feel strong to stand upright. You stand upright so that strength has a place to land. Why shrinking makes life harder. When you carry yourself like an apology, the world responds accordingly. People interrupt you more. They doubt you faster. They overlook your contributions. Not because they're evil, but because humans subconsciously read posture as information. When someone slouches, avoids space, and withdraws, others assume uncertainty. Authority weakens. Influence disappears. This isn't fair, but it is real. And worse than how others treat you is what happens inside you. A person who constantly shrinks begins to avoid responsibility, delay decisions, fear confrontation, accept less than they deserve. Over time, this creates resentment. And resentment doesn't stay quiet. It turns into bitterness. It turns into envy. It turns into self-contempt. And then life becomes heavy. Standing up is not about winning. This rule is often misunderstood. Standing tall does not mean dominating others, crushing competition, acting aggressive. It means self-respect before negotiation. When you stand upright, you are telling the world, "I am here. I can handle myself. I will not disappear." That alone changes everything. People are more likely to listen. They are more likely to give you the benefit of the doubt. They are more likely to treat you as capable, not because you demanded it, but because you signaled it. Vulnerability is hidden inside strength. Standing upright is not hiding weakness. It's exposing yourself to the world honestly. When you stand tall, your chest opens. Your vital organs are no longer protected. Your posture becomes a statement of courage. You are saying, I am not invincible, but I am present. That's real confidence. And paradoxically, that openness is what earns trust. People don't trust those who hide. They trust those who show up fully. Mood follows posture. Most people try to change their thoughts to fix their lives. They repeat affirmations. They analyze endlessly. They wait for motivation. But motivation is unreliable. Posture is immediate. When you straighten your spine, breathe deeply, and lift your gaze, stress hormones decrease. Focus improves. Emotional regulation stabilizes. This doesn't mean your problems vanish. It means you face them from a position of strength instead of collapse. And that matters because problems don't go away when you avoid them. They grow, the courage to take up space. Many people were trained early to make themselves smaller. They were told, don't speak too loudly. Don't draw attention. Don't upset other risks. Over time, that training becomes identity. But here's the truth. The world does not need you invisible. Your absence does not make things better. Your silence does not improve outcomes. Your withdrawal does not create harmony. It creates a vacuum, and something worse fills it. When capable people shrink, irresponsible people rise. Standing upright is not selfish. It is necessary. Small acts, massive effects. This rule does not demand instant transformation. It starts small. Sit upright when working. Stand tall when speaking. Make eye contact when listening. Walk with intention, not hesitation. These actions compound. When you consistently show up physically aligned, your mind begins to follow. You start to speak more clearly, think more boldly, act more decisively. And once momentum starts, it's hard to stop. Why this rule comes first? This is rule 1 for a reason. Before you improve habits, before you fix relationships, before you pursue meaning, you must first present yourself as someone capable of change. If you collapse before life challenges you, everything else fails. Standing upright is the foundation. It says, I may not have everything figured out, but I am willing to face it. That willingness is enough to begin. Life is difficult. It always has been. You will face failure, rejection, illness, loss, and uncertainty. You can meet those realities folded inward, or you can meet them standing tall. One posture leads to bitterness, the other leads to resilience. So start here. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Not when life is easier. Stand up, shoulders back. Breathe. You are not an apology. You are a participant. And that changes everything. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for. Most people misunderstand self-care. They think it means comfort. They think it means indulgence. They think it means avoiding pain, stress, and responsibility. That misunderstanding has quietly ruined millions of lives. Because treating yourself well does not mean doing what feels good in the moment. It means doing what helps you become stronger, healthier, and more capable over time. And strangely enough, most people are far better at doing that for others than for themselves. Why people neglect themselves? If someone you love is sick, you help them. If someone you care about is struggling, you support them. If a child is lost, you guide them. But when you are exhausted, broken, confused, or self-destructive, you delay help. You ignore warning signs. You say, I'll deal with it later. Later rarely comes. Why does this happen? because you know yourself too well. You remember every failure, every bad decision, every moment of weakness, every promise you didn't keep. And over time, that knowledge turns into quiet contempt. You think, why should I take care of someone like me? That thought is more dangerous than people realize. Self-neglect is not humility. Many people disguise self-neglect as virtue. They say, others have it worse. I don't deserve special treatment. I should just push through. But there is nothing noble about allowing yourself to decay. If you neglect your health, your mood worsens. If your mood worsens, your relationships suffer. If your relationships suffer, your life contracts. Self-neglect doesn't stay private. It spills outward. When you don't care for yourself, you become irritable, resentful, unreliable, and withdrawn. The people around you pay the price. So this rule isn't selfish, it's ethical. You are someone's responsibility, yours. Imagine someone placed a child in your care. That child is fragile, imperfect, capable of mistakes, capable of harm. Would you say, you're flawed, so I won't feed you? No. You would guide them, correct them, protect them, encourage them. You would set boundaries not to punish, but to shape. That is exactly how you must treat yourself. Not as an indulgency, but as a duty. Why discipline is an act of care. Real care includes discipline. If you let a child eat only sugar, they suffer. If you let them avoid effort, they weaken. If you let them lie, they destroy trust. Love without structure is neglect. The same is true for you. Treating yourself responsibly means going to sleep when you should, eating in a way that sustains you, doing difficult tasks even when you resist, saying no to what weakens you. This is not punishment, this is guidance. And guidance is a form of love, the trap of self-hatred. Many people secretly believe they are fundamentally broken. They think, if people really knew me, they wouldn't respect me. That belief leads to two outcomes: hiding, self-sabotage. You avoid responsibility because failure would confirm your fears. Or you destroy opportunities before they expose you. But here's the truth most people avoid. Everyone is flawed. You are not uniquely damaged. You are not exceptionally corrupt. You are not alone in your imperfection. What separates those who build meaningful lives from those who collapse is not purity. It's responsibility. Why you still matter despite your flaws. You don't take care of yourself because you're perfect. You take care of yourself because you can improve, you can contribute, you can reduce suffering, yours and others. When you get stronger, the world benefits. A healthier you is more patient, is more honest, is more reliable, is more courageous. That matters. A neglected you is not harmless. It creates more chaos. Start small, that's the key. This rule does not ask you to fix everything at once. That approach fails every time. Instead, ask, what would someone who cared about me help me fix first? Maybe it's sleep. Maybe it's diet. Maybe it's organization. Maybe it's honesty. Pick one thing. Do it badly if you must, but do it consistently. Care compounds. Why taking care of yourself is harder than helping others. Helping others feels clean. Helping yourself forces you to confront your excuses, your patterns, your avoidance. That confrontation is uncomfortable. But discomfort is not danger. Growth requires friction, and avoiding friction guarantees stagnation. The moral dimension of self-care. There is a deeper reason this rule matters. When you neglect yourself, You indirectly tell the world, I have nothing worth offering. That is rarely true. Every individual carries potential that no one else can replace. When you refuse to develop it, something essential goes missing. And history shows what happens when too many people withdraw. The world becomes darker, so this rule is not about happiness alone. It's about responsibility to existence itself. What treating yourself responsibly looks like? It looks like planning instead of drifting, effort instead of avoidance, structure of chaos, truth instead of self-deception. It looks like forgiveness paired with correction. I'm terrible, so I give up. But I failed, now I adjust and continue. You are not required to like yourself all the time, but you are required to act like you care. Care is not a feeling, care is behavior. And when you behave as if you matter, something remarkable happens. You start to believe it. Not because you lied to yourself, but because your actions proved it. So treat yourself like someone entrusted to your care. Because you are. Choose people who want you to become stronger. Your life is shaped by the people you keep around you, far more than you realize. Not by what they say directly, not by the advice they give, but by what they reward, tolerate, and undermine. Human beings are social creatures. We learn what is acceptable, admirable, and achievable by watching those closest to us. And if the people around you are drifting, avoiding responsibility, or quietly resenting effort, that current will pull you with it. Whether you notice or not, the silent influence of company. Most influence is not loud. It happens in subtle ways. A joke when you try to improve. A sigh when you share ambition. A distraction offered when discipline is required. A comment that sounds harmless but weakens resolve. These moments matter. They train your nervous system to associate growth with discomfort and belonging with stagnation. And over time, you adjust, not upward, but downward. Not all friendship is benevolent. This is difficult to accept because we want to believe friendship automatically means goodwill. It doesn't. Some people like you only when you stay predictable. Some people feel safe only when you don't change. Some people need you beneath them to feel stable. They don't necessarily wish you harm, but they don't wish you growth either. And indifference to your improvement is not neutral. It is corrosive. The test of real support. Here is a simple test. Tell someone good news if they are genuinely happy for you, without minimizing, redirecting, or competing. That is a sign of strength. If they respond with sarcasm, silence, doubt disguised as concern, a quick shift to their own problems. Pay attention. Those reactions reveal more than words ever could. Why growth threatens some people? Improvement disrupts unspoken agreements. When you rise, excuses look weaker. Avoidance feels exposed. Comfort zones destabilize. Your progress becomes a mirror, and not everyone wants to look. So some people try to restore balance by pulling you back. Not through force, through doubt. The cost of staying in the wrong circles. Staying around people who undermine your growth does not preserve peace. It delays conflict and multiplies regret. Over time, you will feel frustrated with yourself, resentful of them, confused about your direction. Eventually, something breaks, either the relationship or your potential. Loyalty without truth is not virtue. Many people stay in damaging relationships out of misplaced loyalty. They say, "We've known each other forever. I don't want to abandon them." They're struggling. But enabling decline is not compassion. Supporting someone does not mean joining them in destruction. You can care without participating. And sometimes the most respectful thing you can do is step back. You become what you tolerate. This rule is not about judging others. It's about understanding influence. If you tolerate it, chronic negativity, constant excuses, habitual dishonesty, aimlessness, you absorb it. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. Environment shapes behavior. Choose yours carefully. Aim upward together. The best relationships are mutually elevating. They include honest feedback, encouragement without envy, accountability without cruelty, celebration without competition. These relationships are rare and invaluable. Protect them. Letting go is not cruel. Walking away from destructive patterns is not betrayal. It's self-preservation. And sometimes your absence forces growth in them and in you. You cannot rescue people by drowning with them. Be the kind of person you seek. This rule cuts both ways. If you want better people around you, be reliable, be honest, be disciplined, be encouraging. Quality attracts quality. Not instantly, but eventually. Your future listens closely to your present company. Choose people who challenge you to rise, who celebrate your progress, who confront you when you drift, who stay honest when comfort tempts lies. Because the people you walk with determine how far you go. Choose wisely. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who others are today. Comparison is one of the fastest ways to poison your life. It happens quietly. You scroll, you observe, you measure. And before you realize it, your mood drops. Not because your life is bad, but because someone else appears to be doing better. This rule exists because comparison is unavoidable. But misdirected comparison is destructive. You cannot stop yourself from noticing others, but you can choose the standard by which you judge your progress. And choosing the wrong standard can slowly crush your motivation, clarity, and sense of purpose. Why comparison feels so natural? Human beings evolved in small groups. Status mattered. Contribution mattered, competence mattered. Watching others helped us learn what worked, what failed, what was admired, what was rejected. Comparison, at its core, is a learning tool. The problem begins when comparison turns into self-condemnation. The modern trap of infinite comparison. In the past, you compared yourself to a few dozen people. Now you compare yourself to millions. People who are further ahead, have different advantages, live different lives, show only their best moments. You are measuring your behind the scenes against someone else's highlight reel. That is not a fair contest, and it never was. Yet your nervous system doesn't know that, it only knows I'm behind. And prolonged exposure to that feeling leads to envy, hopelessness, bitterness, withdrawal. Eventually, people stop trying. Not because they are incapable, but because the target feels unreachable. Why there will always be someone ahead of you. No matter how far you go, someone will be further. There will always be someone richer, someone smarter, someone faster, someone more admired. If your standard is be the best, you lose the game the moment you begin. That game has no finish line. And worse, it distracts you from the only competition that actually matters. The only fair comparison. There is exactly one person whose circumstances you fully understand. You, yesterday. You know what you struggled with, what you avoided, what you did honestly, what you failed to do. That makes yesterday you the only fair benchmark, not because yesterday you was impressive, but because yesterday you is real. Progress is incremental, not dramatic. People imagine progress as transformation. They think, one day I'll wake up different. That rarely happens. Real progress looks boring. Slightly more disciplined, slightly more organized, slightly more honest, slightly more focused. So small that others won't notice. But these small changes compound, and compounded effort is unstoppable. Why small wins matter more than big dreams. Big dreams without structure produce anxiety. Small improvements produce momentum. When you aim to improve just 1%, something powerful happens. Success becomes likely. Confidence grows. Effort feels rewarded. And confidence built through action is real confidence, not delusion. The psychological cost of constant comparison. When you constantly compare yourself upward, you feel inferior, you feel late, you feel defective. That feeling corrodes ambition. People don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they lose belief that effort is worth it. Comparison can steal that belief. Why life becomes more individual with time. As you grow older, your life becomes more specific. Your responsibilities differ. Your values sharpen. Your trade-offs increase. By adulthood, no one else has your exact mix of obligations, strengths, weaknesses, history, which makes comparison even less meaningful. You are running a custom race. Judging yourself by someone else's finish line makes no sense. The right way to use others is inspiration. This rule does not say, ignore excellence. It says, don't use excellence as a weapon against yourself. You can admire others without condemning yourself. Let others show what's possible, not what you lack. Define better, carefully, famous, perfect. Better means more responsible, more truthful, more disciplined, more aligned with your values. You get to define the metric. That is freedom and responsibility. The power of daily alignment. Each day, did I act slightly more in line with who I want to become? Not, did I win? Not, as I impressive. Just, was I better than yesterday? That question keeps you moving forward. Why this rule protects you from despair. Hopelessness comes from feeling stuck. Progress, even slow progress, breaks despair. When you can point to improvement, no matter how small, you regain agency. Agency restores meaning. You do not need to outrun the world. You only need to outrun stagnation. Stop measuring your life against strangers. Stop punishing yourself for being human. Measure progress honestly. Move forward incrementally. Let time do its work. Because when you consistently improve, even by the smallest margin, you become unrecognizable over time. And that is how real change happens. Do not allow behavior that makes you disrespect yourself. This rule is uncomfortable for a reason. It forces you to confront a truth most people avoid. What you tolerate today becomes what controls you tomorrow. Disrespect does not usually arrive as cruelty. It arrives quietly, disguised as excuses, patience, or avoidance. And once it settles in, it grows. Why disrespect is more dangerous than failure. Failure hurts. Disrespect corrodes. When you fail at something difficult, you can recover. When you allow behavior that makes you lose respect for yourself, something deeper breaks. Because self-respect is the foundation of discipline. Without self-respect, promises mean nothing. Boundaries collapse. Effort feels pointless. Shame replaces motivation. And shame does not improve behavior, it paralyzes it. Tolerance trains the future. Every time you allow something that weakens you, you teach yourself a lesson. That lesson is not conscious, it is biological and emotional. It says, this is acceptable. Over time, poor habits, disrespectful treatment, avoidance, excuses, not because you want to, but because you practice tolerating them. Discipline is not cruelty. Many people reject discipline because they confuse it with punishment. But discipline, at its core, means teaching behavior that leads to stability. A lack of discipline is not kindness. It is negligence. Imagine a person who never corrects themselves, never sets limits, never says, enough. That person does not become free. They become chaotic, and chaos eventually turns into suffering. Why you must intervene early. Bad patterns escalate. Small acts of avoidance turn into habits. Habits turn into identity. Identity turns into destiny. The earlier you interrupt destructive behavior, the less force is required. A quiet correction now prevents a violent crisis later. You are not neutral toward yourself. You are either guiding yourself or abandoning yourself. There is no third option. If you refuse to set boundaries with yourself, life will do it for you. And life is far less merciful. The internal hierarchy inside every person is an internal structure. One part of you plans, one part acts, one part excuses, one part judges. If the judging part is absent, the acting part becomes reckless. If the judging part becomes cruel, the acting part collapses. The goal is firm guidance, not abuse. Why people avoid setting standards? People avoid standards because standards demand consequences. If you say, I won't accept this behavior, then you must act when the behavior appears. That requires courage. Avoidance feels easier until the cost becomes unbearable. Disrespect spreads outward. When you tolerate disrespect in yourself, you tolerate it in others. You accept poor treatment. You attract instability. You normalize dysfunction. Self-respect teaches others how to treat you. Boundaries are acts of care. Boundaries are not walls. They are guardrails. They prevent you from going places that damage you. Saying no to what weakens you is saying yes to your future. Correcting without hatred. This rule does not demand self-contempt. Correction without compassion creates rebellion. Compassion without correction creates chaos. You need both. You say, this behavior is not acceptable and I will do better. Not, I am worthless. There is a difference. Why self-respect must be earned repeatedly. Self-respect is not a feeling you receive. It is a relationship you maintain. Every honest action strengthens it. Every tolerated lie weakens it. That's why this rule must be practiced daily. What this rule looks like in practice. It looks like getting up when you said you would, stopping yourself mid-excuse, leaving situations that degrade you, ending habits that quietly ruin you, not dramatically, consistently. Why this rule protects your future self. Your future self is watching. Every action you take is a message sent forward in time. He either said you're back, or I gave up. Choose carefully. Final reflection. You do not need to be perfect, but you must be firm. Do not allow behavior that makes you lose respect for yourself, because once respect collapses, discipline collapses, and without discipline, life becomes hostile. Guide yourself. Correct yourself. care enough to intervene. That is how order is built. From the inside out, set your own life in order before you declare war on the world. This rule exists because resentment is seductive. It offers an explanation for pain without demanding responsibility. It tells you that your suffering has a clear villain, and that villain is never you. When life feels unfair, resentment whispers. It's the system. It's society. It's other people. It's the world. Sometimes those things really are unjust. But resentment becomes dangerous when it turns into an identity, when it becomes the lens through which you see everything. That is where destruction begins. Why resentment feels justified. Resentment is not born out of nothing. It grows when effort goes unrewarded, suffering's meaningless, sacrifice seems ignored, promises are broken. In those moments, anger feels like clarity, and anger can reveal truth. But unchecked resentment does something else. It distorts judgment. It convinces you that destruction is justice. The difference between justice and revenge. Justice aims to restore order. Revenge aims to cause pain. Resentment slowly shifts your motivation from the first to the second. At first, you want fairness. Then you want acknowledgement. Eventually, you want others to suffer the way you did. That is the psychological tipping point. And once crossed, people begin to justify almost anything. Why fixing the world is often an escape. It feels noble to focus on global problems. It feels heroic to fight abstract enemies. It feels meaningful to rage against injustice. But sometimes, not always, but often, this focus hides something closer and more painful. Your own unresolved chaos. It is far easier to condemn the world than to confront your habits. It is far easier to fight ideology than to fix discipline. It is far easier to shout than to clean. This is not because people are evil. It's because self-examination is terrifying. The uncomfortable question. This rule asks one brutal question. Have I genuinely done what I can to fix what is within my control? Not in theory, not in intention, but in action. Have you organized your days, told the truth, addressed your addictions, honored your responsibilities, set boundaries, corrected what you know is wrong? Because if you haven't, your judgment of the world is compromised. Why self-correction comes first. If your room is a disaster, your arguments about society lack weight. Not morally, but psychologically. Because unresolved personal disorder fuels projection. You don't just see problems, you look for them. And once resentment becomes your compass, everything looks like an enemy. The slippery path of moral certainty. It simplifies complexity into use vs them, good vs evil, victims vs oppressors. The more certain you become, the less reflective you are. And history shows what happens when people believe they are morally flawless. They stop questioning themselves. And when self-questioning dies, cruelty is never far behind. Responsibility is not self-blame. This rule does not say, everything is your fault. That would be false and cruel. It says, your responsibility comes before your accusation. You can recognize injustice without becoming corrupted by it. But only if your own house is in order. Why personal order limits tyranny? A person who has discipline, honesty, structure, meaningful goals, is far less likely to become destructive. Why? Because they don't need chaos to feel powerful. They already have direction. Disorder seeks control. Order seeks progress. the psychological danger of unexamined rage. Rage feels energizing. It gives purpose to pain. But rage without responsibility mutates. It turns inward or outward, often both. And people who act from resentment rarely build anything. They burn. Why this rule protects you from becoming what you hate. Many atrocities were committed by people who believed they were correcting injustice. They did not see themselves as villains. They saw themselves as necessary, that is, the danger of unchecked resentment. This rule exists to stop that process inside you before it becomes external. What setting your life in order actually means. It does not mean perfection. It means stopping what you know is wrong, doing what you know is right, telling the truth, taking responsibility for your actions, reducing chaos where you can. Even small acts matter, order compounds. Why this is an act of humility. To say, I may be part of the problem, is not weakness. It is the beginning of wisdom. Humility keeps your moral compass intact. What happens when you do this? When you take responsibility seriously? Resentment loses power. Judgment sharpens. Compassion increases. Action becomes constructive. You no longer need enemies to feel purposeful. The proper sequence. The sequence matters. Fix what you can control. Tell the truth. Reduce unnecessary suffering. Then, and only then, challenge the world. Anything else is premature. Resentment promises meaning without effort. Responsibility demands effort, but delivers meaning. Before you condemn the world, before you rage against injustice, before you decide who is guilty, ask yourself honestly, have I done what I can to set my own life straight? If not, start there, because order is the foundation of justice, and without it, even good intentions turn dangerous. What is meaningful, not what is easy. This rule is the dividing line between a life that grows stronger and a life that slowly collapses. Most people do not fail because they choose evil. They fail because they choose what is easy, repeatedly, until the cost becomes unbearable. Easy feels harmless in the moment. Meaningful often feels heavy, demanding, and inconvenient. But the long-term consequences of those two paths could not be more different. Why easy is so tempting. Easy offers immediate relief. It says, rest now, avoid the discomfort. You deserve a break. This can wait, and sometimes rest is necessary. Avoidance is not. The problem is not ease itself. The problem is living by it. When ease becomes your primary value, your life begins to shrink. Short-term comfort, long-term cost. Every easy choice extracts a small payment from the future. You skip the difficult conversation, resentment grows. You avoid responsibility, chaos spreads. You numb pain, it returns stronger. You lie, confusion multiplies. None of these consequences arrive immediately. That delay is what makes easy choices dangerous. Meaning is what justifies suffering. Life includes suffering no matter what you do. That is not pessimism, it is reality. Pain comes through. Illness, loss, failure, responsibility. The question is not whether you will suffer. The question is, what will make the suffering worthwhile? Meaning answers that question. Meaning is not happiness. Happiness is fleeting. It comes and goes with circumstance, mood, and luck. Meaning is different. Meaning is what allows you to endure difficulty without becoming bitter. People who have meaning can suffer greatly and still move forward. People who lack meaning suffer less and collapse sooner. Why people meaning demands sacrifice? It asks, What must you give up? What responsibility will you accept? What truth will you face? Those questions are frightening. Easy avoids them. But avoidance creates emptiness. And emptiness eventually turns into despair. The difference between pleasure and meaning. Pleasure numbs pain temporarily. Meaning transforms pain into purpose. Pleasure asks nothing of you. Meaning asks everything. That is why meaning is rare, and why it is precious. The path of meaning is not glamorous. Choosing meaning rarely looks impressive at first. It looks like discipline instead of indulgence, honesty instead of popularity, responsibility instead of freedom, long-term effort instead of shortcuts. Meaning grows quietly, its rewards are delayed but durable. Why meaning strengthens you? Meaning organizes your life. When you have meaning, decisions become clearer. Sacrifice makes sense. Suffering becomes bearable. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this demanding of me?" That shift changes everything. Easy choices breed resentment. People who live for ease often become resentful. Why? Because the world does not reward avoidance. Reality eventually demands payment, and when the bill arrives, people blame society, fate, others, life itself. Meaningful lives produce fewer enemies because responsibility replaces blame. Meaning requires truth. You cannot build meaning on lies. Lies fragment your life. They force you to remember who you are pretending to be. Truth simplifies. It aligns thought, word, and action. That alignment is powerful. The burden you choose matters. You will carry a burden no matter what. The question is, will it be a burden you chose, or one forced upon you? Meaning allows choice. Easy postpones it, and postponed choices return as crises. Meaning is found in responsibility. Meaning is not discovered in comfort. It is found in caring for others, building something difficult, taking responsibility for something fragile, bearing consequences willingly. That is why meaning feels heavy. Weight gives gravity. Why this rule is central. This rule sits at the core of everything else. Without meaning, discipline collapses. Truth becomes optional. Responsibility feels unfair. With meaning, suffering becomes tolerable. Effort becomes noble. Growth becomes possible. Meaning is the structure that holds the rest together. How to choose meaning practically. Ask yourself, what responsibility am I avoiding? What truth am I afraid to say? What effort would improve my life if I sustained it? Then act, imperfectly but honestly. Meaning responds to action. Why meaning compounds? Each meaningful choice strengthens the next. Courage builds courage. Honesty builds clarity. Responsibility builds capability. Over time, life stabilizes. Not because it becomes easy, but because you become stronger. The ultimate trade. Easy offers comfort now, and chaos later. Meaning offers difficulty now and strength later. That is the trade. There is no neutral path. Life will challenge you whether you are prepared or not. You can face those challenges weakened by avoidance or strengthened by meaning. Choose what asks more of you. Choose what demands honesty. Choose what builds rather than numbs. Because meaning does not remove suffering, it gives suffering a reason. And that reason can carry you further than comfort ever will.